Good evening, good evening, good evening, and welcome to a new edition of Urban Sentinel Live. I'm your host, Reggie Kearney. I appreciate you guys for tuning in and to watch us tonight. We're going to continue our conversation from last week with Richard Cuff from Jacksonville, Florida. We're going to talk about the events over the weekend, and we're also going to talk about a little bit more of 2025. I apologize for us being late, but we had some technical difficulties. So, hey, we can go ahead and get started now. That'll be great with me. So, Richard, how you doing today?
Man, all is well. All is well. Glad to be back to continue the conversation and
appreciate it.
Appreciate it, man. There's with the new twist.
Yeah, we definitely got a new twist. So I know everyone knows what's happening, So if you're living and you're breathing, you know what happened over the weekend. The former president, President 45, someone attempted to assassinate him over the weekend, So I mean, that's pretty much been the news. If you looked at the news Saturday night, Saturday evening, Sunday, and part of Monday, that's basically been the news. And then we had the Republican Party who's having their convention this week in Milwaukee, But we wanted to start off about just talking about politics and the violence that takes place in politics and how, being a politician these days is not really a good profession to be in, because regardless of if you're local or you're national, there's someone out there that you're going to make mad. You're going to kind of tee them off and they're going to want to do something crazy, okay? And this is what this young man did over the weekend. The thing is they haven't been able to pinpoint why he did it, because he didn't have a whole lot of stuff on his phone, a lot of stuff on his computer. So we might not never know why he did what he did, but he did it and everything,
Yeah.
So, and he was a lot of people want to blame the Democrats, but he wasn't.
Well, no, he was
Magna. They say at times. He's had signs in his yard. Him and his family have had signs in the yard. So hey, we'll never know. What you think, Richard?
Well, listen, my mom used to say, as my mom used to say, the dead can't talk, right? So what this young man's motives were, nobody's going to know. I've got a lot of theories and a lot of thoughts. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I do have theories, right?
Right.
And there are things that just don't add up.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And number one, it's a fact, and nobody's denying this, that for 3 minutes they had this kid in their line of sight. For 3 minutes. They were the people literally see him 50 feet away from the back, because those that were over on that side of the crowd were looking and saying, that building right there, there's a guy climbing up that building with a rifle. Hey, police officers, there's a guy climbing up that building. And the cops and the Secret Service ignored him, waiting for him to get into position. See, I'm a comedian and I'm a creative. So my first thought was, I started looking at it like, already say, art imitates life, right? But I first thought was, wow, life is imitating art. Do you remember the movie by Denzel Washington did called The Manchurian Candidate?
Yeah.
Do you remember that movie, Reggie?
Yeah.
Well, the theory, what it was is Denzel was like ex-military. He was in this thing, but they had hypnotized him and had trained him. You could hypnotize somebody to be an assassin. And that was the story. But, you know, whether this kid, whether his motives were something like that, that don't come at me, because I'm not stating this as theory. I'm just stating this as a creative comedian that says this would be pretty comical that they think they could hypnotize somebody. But he's on that roof for 3 minutes. The thing that says to me something's fishy was how the Secret Service allowed Trump to stand up and pump his fist and get all those wonderful photos of his bloody ear, right? Because the way they had him covered up, that's how they should have taken him off stage covered up.
Right.
But if they had not taken him off stage covered up, you wouldn't have seen Trump without the tie. You wouldn't seen Trump, because they literally changed his image in that one moment. You got a photo, Trump, blood on his ear and no tie. He's a whole. From a marketing standpoint, that's a brand new package. He's new and improved. And I told a friend of mine, I said, you're gonna see it on Thursday night. He bet me $1 that Trump would double down. And I bet him $1 that Trump is going to be a changed man. Trump is going to be, I've seen the light. Jesus visited me. I repent for my sins. And because he's going to, and when he does that, he's going to move right into the center of all Christians. Right now, he's losing going after the extreme MAGA, what's her name? Marjorie Taylor Greene, Christian nationalist. He's losing that. He's losing the middle ground Christian. The middle ground Christian, and black folk too. Now, tell me this, Reggie. Have you ever been to a church and heard a preacher preach something like, I was a sinner on my way to hell and Jesus found me, and I was a drug dealer, I was in prison, and the Lord spoke to me, and I was slanging drugs, and 3 shots was fired, and I was in a coma for 3 months, and I came out of that, and now I'm starting this church, and next thing you know, he's a mega pastor and he's got a congregation, and every week he reminds the congregation how much of a whoremonger he was. My dollar is on Trump, that Trump gonna be a changed man on Thursday night. We'll see.
Well, like I told my wife, I said this definitely is going to change him, but only for about 2 weeks. Okay, because he's a narcissist and narcissist, and what's going to happen? He's going to miss that craziness that he needs in his life. And he's going to go right back at it, cussing people out, pointing fingers and everything. Okay, it's only going to last for a minute.
No, you said it's only going to last for a minute, but this is for both you and Richard and everything. One of the things that I have seen, and it was from both the Biden camp and the Trump camp and everything along those lines, is they have said that they want to tone down the campaign rhetoric and all along those lines. And some of those people that y'all were talking about, like Marjorie Taylor Greene, I did not hear her speech, but definitely the one from here, Mark Robinson, has been known to say some very things that will incense you and all along those lines. And even his speech was very short. I hear it was like 3.5 minutes long. So talking about church folks, and he is so apparently affiliated with a church here in North Carolina, or a couple of churches, a 3.5 minute speech by a minister is a rarity. So I'm thinking that they actually told him to tone down his rhetoric and not to speak as long as he might have done as one of the openers in the first day of speeches and all along those lines. But I just wanted your thoughts about that, because when I heard that he only gave Mark Roberts,
I'm losing you guys.
Governor, that he only did 3.5 minute speech, that is rare for any minister.
Well, this is one of the things. Okay, now Johnson gave a speech last night, Congressman Johnson. Okay, now 45 been talking about ramping it down. Okay.
Yes.
Johnson came out there last night and gave an incendiary speech. Okay, when somebody questioned him about it, say, didn't Trump say y'all gonna tone it down and talk about unity and everything? He wanted to blame it on his people putting the wrong speech in the teleprompter.
No, I got you.
So he said, well, I went on here and did my same speech, this old speech I had, because they put the wrong one in the teleprompter. But couldn't you ad-lib and talk about unity without that being written into your speech?
You would think that he'd be able to ad-lib.
Oh, no, but he didn't. So that tells me, yeah, okay, 45 might have had a come to Jesus meeting, okay, but everybody else didn't.
Yep. And like I said, I haven't heard Marjorie, and hopefully Richard will come back and everything along those lines. But I do have a question coming back to our lieutenant governor and everything, because he's been trying to put out this notion of him being a homespun kind of guy. So he's been talking about how he's the son of a widow and all along those lines. And apparently in the commercial, he mentions, coming from a fairly big family. I've only got me and my younger brother, but I do have friends of mine that come from families of 8, 15 and all along those lines. But I got a question for you, Reggie. Everybody that I know that is in the political landscape, or even, I don't care what you're running for, even if you're running for a student body president, usually your family members will come out and endorse you or come out on the campaign trail with you. I have yet to see, and maybe I'm just missing them, any of Mark Robinson's siblings out there on the trail with him. So that actually tells me that maybe the siblings aren't as up on the MAGA train as he is, and all along those lines. But I don't know if you've noticed this, that even though he's supposed to be one of their darlings, that his siblings, and if you got 9 siblings, at least half of them should be coming out to support you.
But he's probably an embarrassment to them.
Right.
The way he's talking, the way he's acting and everything. Now, 45 talking about unity and need to bring the rhetoric down, okay? He better call that dude up in North Carolina, Mark. He better call Mark up first and tell Mark he need to change.
Yeah.
But see, it all boils back down to this evangelical Christian nationalist crap, okay? And that they think what they're doing and how they're approaching things is the godly way, okay? What the right-wing evangelists want to do, I liken it to what Sharia law is, okay? They're trying to take Christian nationalism and say, this is the way this country needs to be ran, and this is how we're going to do it. And you either get on board and come along with us, or you're just not part of us, okay? They think they're the right ones with God because Trump got them thinking, and they started thinking this stuff right before the last election that he ran, the first time he ran, and he won, that God sent him.
Mm-hmm.
I just I don't know what God they believe in. I don't think God sent him, okay? He was just a vehicle and a tool to spout out racist comments, calling names, talking about different races of color and everything. And that's what he built his campaign on. And the reason he built his campaign on that because them white folks before then were scared to say something because they're scared to beat up in public, okay? And that's all it was. That's all it is now. We got to wake up, and one of the things I'm afraid of in the Black community, we're not waking up. And many communities, okay, not just the Black community, people in the white community, not waking up and seeing that this guy is a danger to democracy. Okay, I don't care how they spin it and say it. He is a danger to democracy.
But Reggie, and I hope Richard's getting ready to get his mic adjusted and everything. On that same space, he just recently, I think it was yesterday, he named his VP. And I think he go after the country vote and all along those lines, because definitely there are a number of people that are in the rural community, and particularly the white rural community. And apparently even his book, Hillbilly Elegy or something like that, is definitely kind of talking about his background growing up in kind of that country attitude. And yes, there are definitely poor whites and all along those lines. And apparently he is a Yale graduate, or his wife is a Yale graduate, and he's got some degrees as well. And he's definitely seems like they're going for that millennial down home kind of support as everything. So I was just wondering, y'all talked about this because a lot of people have been talking about the fact that he is married to a Indian from India woman and all along those lines. But definitely, if he was to win, and I know that's part of what maybe Trump was thinking, if he was to win and something was to happen to him, because Trump ain't a spring chicken either. People get on Biden at his age, but I think there's like a 3-year difference. So if he was to come to office, he would be, because I think he's the youngest vice presidential candidate. If he was coming to his office in like the 40s or something like that as the president, he would probably be the youngest president we ever had and everything. So it sounds like they're trying to go for the millennials and also go for some of that rural voting, particularly in the rural white community and everything. But what's your take on that, Reggie?
Well, they say he's the heir apparent to the Magna Party, so I guess Make America Great Again gonna be around until they all die off and everything. But one of the things I see, I feel like his wife is probably passive, because if you're a person of color, how can you be with a person that spews hatred about people of color, okay? And you then partnered up with a guy who always talking racist, okay? So how does that make you feel as a person of color? Your husband is out there on the wrong side of history.
We already saw that to some degree, because as I was saying, we were talking about this offline earlier and everything, but Ann Coulter basically put Vivek Ramaswamy in his place and everything, because basically in the interview that I saw, and I didn't watch all of it, she basically said that she cannot support Vivek because he's Indian, which basically says that I can't support you because you're not part of this group, which is the WASP group that I am very much a supporter of and everything. So, and apparently he ate it up and was actually even giving her some kudos. So he basically was playing that Tom role, basically saying that I can understand where you're coming from and all along those lines. But I'm going like, wait a minute, she just basically called you out for being part of the black and brown group and everything.
And like Nikki Haley, that's one of the reasons she didn't get selected. She's a person of color. Even though she tries hard to be white, she's still a person of color. Tim Scott, come on, dude. What made you think you were going to be vice president? Okay, you're a person of color. Amber Rose, political prostitute of the year. What makes you think they love you? Okay, they don't. They're using you. I read an article today where one Republican stated he didn't know why in the world they invited Amber Rose up there, someone who got something on OnlyFans. She's done screwed everybody in the rap industry, and she's all about sex.
Yep. Yes, Richard?
He's froze up again. And they one of the things that they did, if you notice it, he gave last night was Black Folks Night. He allowed all the blacks to speak last night. Get them out the easy night, the first night. Okay, let me get the black folks up there and let them say what they got to say. And then we're gonna move along with with my folks the rest of the week.
The rest of the week will be his folks and everything. I think Nikki's supposed to speak tonight if she hasn't already spoken and everything. But I did see that. I did see that Mark Robinson, like you said, spoke. A couple of other folks spoke as well. He is going to have some of the evangelists speaking as well, because I think Billy Graham's, I guess that's his son, is speaking. That might be today or Wednesday, but I know he got Franklin Graham on ticket to be a speaker as well and everything. So we do have him coming on.
What people don't realize, Billy Graham was probably one of the most racist preachers during his time. Now, I can't say how he died and what his thoughts were when he died. But during his time, he was one of the most racist preachers out there, because he practiced what they were practicing in the South, okay? And he did, he talked to Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King and Jr. and asked him to tone it down, and they didn't need all what he was doing and stuff in this country and all that kind of stuff, And it was years before he would even allow blacks to come to his crusades. And Franklin Graham is the same way. His son is a chip off the old block. Right, Richard?
Yeah, one of the absolutely. And I'm sorry for popping in and out, guys. I'm getting this signal right here at the center. But number one is what I think we need to do is slow things down in order to make the connection, because they're moving so fast that we don't see that This is simply a 70-year strategy that got started back in 1954 with the moment the Brown v. Board of Education was passed. White evangelicals went into panic mode because in their mindset, they were going to lose the ability to keep their white children separate from Black children. That was their biggest fear. And so you didn't see it right away from 1954. And I can't remember when Graham came in, but here's why Billy Graham became Billy Graham. Billy Graham was doing these crusades, and some politicians somewhere realized, wait a minute, this man is bringing together a block of votes. We need to work with him. If we can find a way to plug into him, we can get that block of votes. Billy Graham realized that because politicians were coming to him, and that political power translated into the ability to keep him and his culture insulated. So you have to look at the trajectory from 1954 to about 1965. What happened? Martin Luther King, we have a dream, Black folk are advancing, and white folk are diminishing. And for whatever reason, Reggie, whenever this group of people think about us moving up, they think about themselves being diminished.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like,
and they're not going to be diminished, okay? We have just, as a people, finally hit our stride, and we want the same things that they have, okay? You know, it's like, you know, another thing on Billy Graham. He had a talk with Dr. King in 64, 65 time era before they did the March on Washington, and tried to advise them not to do it. You know, try to talk them out of doing it. You know, that kind of mess, okay? Like you said, they wanted us to stay in our place. And you got some of them today still got that same mentality where they think we need to stay in our place.
Well, here's what I want people to do if you come across this video, if you take anything away from this. I love that the media all of a sudden started talking about Project 2025. But here's what they didn't want to happen. They didn't want you to connect Project 2025 all the way back to the Southern Manifesto. And you go now, what you will find is people are when people started Googling and Google said, wait a minute, Project 2025 is off the charts. Well, what they also noticed, Southern Manifesto is being Googled more than anything. Like, wait a minute, why are people? Okay, people are now literally looking at the Southern Manifesto and realizing almost word for word, this Southern Manifesto is, you can find it in Project 2025. What was the Southern Manifesto? It was written as and signed and implemented by all of these Southern politicians who said, okay, the Supreme Court says we've got to segregate our schools, but here's what we can do. We're gonna claim states' rights, and we're gonna claim that we can have vouchers to send our children to private school, and then we're gonna get the government to fund those vouchers. But by the time they got to the 70s, here's what they ran up against. They ran up against this. What did you say earlier, Reggie? That we started coming up, right? We started advancing. And we were just saying, and this is what I want people to understand. I want you to understand that our civil rights movement in the 60s was not about equality, that it was equity. There's a difference between equality and equity. And equality says, you know, you see that, I don't know if you've seen that photo, right? But equality says, I'll give everybody a box to stand on. And there's the guy that has no box, one box, and there's the guy that already has two boxes. But if you're going to give everybody equally one box, those two that have boxes already still have the advantage. Doesn't matter. As long as you give me equally what you give white people are going to keep moving up. What I want is equity. Equity is to bring me up to the same level to make up for the hole that you dug for me. Put something in there. That's equity. Well, here's the problem. Whenever we got equity, white people demanded equality. It's white folk who wanted equality. They want, if we get government vouchers, they want government vouchers too. They just don't want to call it vouchers. If we get welfare assistance, they want welfare too. Equal. They want equal. They want equal welfare. They don't need equity because they're already ahead of the game. So they've been selling that for the longest, but it was in 1973 when the Heritage Foundation started. And the Heritage Foundation is when they began to organize. They said, wait a minute, we need to bring Billy Graham, and we can get the politicians, and we can bring the corporations, and we can pool them all together. And since 1973, these think tanks have been the force that speak to the politicians behind closed doors. That's what we don't have. We don't have, we don't have that collective voice that speaks like that behind closed doors.
And that's what we need. Now, granted, we've got Reverend Barber out here. We got Reverend Sharpton out here, Al Sharpton out here. A couple more guys, president of WCP. There needs to be a think tank. We need to try to put together our agenda for the future. Then Tavis Smiley, when he was out there strong, every year he had a town hall meeting, and he developed some, agenda going forward for the future, and we need to get back to that. Okay, we need to get back to that, because what's happening with this this Heritage Foundation crap? If you look at the members that are part of this organization and the companies that are part of this organization, it's a 50-50 chance you've done business with one of those companies. Okay? Yeah. Because, these guys have, they're drinking the Kool-Aid, and they don't care if you know it. But they realize, too, if you, like the Coors Light guy, he was one of the founders of the Heritage Foundation. Now, as much as we love to drink Coors Light beer, how can you get the message out to the people that support him by buying his beer and say boycott? Okay? How can you tell the people they need to stop shopping at Walmart because there's members of the Walmart family that are connected to the Heritage Foundation? How do you do that? Now, back in the 60s and 70s, all you had to do make one phone call and say, look, don't go to that business no more, and it was a done deal. Okay?
Yeah.
But now you can't do that anymore. And you can do it, but we don't want to do it.
Well, and so, again, the tactics of what the Bible says, the weapons of this warfare are not carnal, right? Mm-hmm. And weapon warfare change. As warfare changes, the weapons change, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. We're not using the same weapons as a country. We're not using the same weapons today that we had when we were fighting World War I or the Civil War. The weaponry changes. The part of the challenge is we don't change the weaponry. We still use boycotts and protests. Boycotts and protests don't work. They get attention, but no, it used to be like, oh my God, those black folk are going to come over here and protest and sit at our lunch counters and cause a disruption. Now they pick up the phone and they call the cops, and the cops come in, cat, and black folks scattered. They know that protests will eventually die down. They have this mindset that, look, all we've got to do is tolerate it, because in 3 to 4 months, every one of those Negroes going to go back to their jobs because they can't keep protesting. And the media is complicit with it because the media doesn't cover it. The media doesn't do follow-up stories. So because our media is Black entertainment TV. What did they get? Fox News Network. We wouldn't watch a news network if Black News Network came on. We wouldn't keep it on for more than 10 minutes before it's boring.
Yeah,
but when they came up with Fox News,
no, I just want to say real quick. I just want to say real quick. They've come up, there's been a couple of stations that have tried, some of the newer stations that have tried Black news, and it just didn't work.
No, and again, it goes back to foundation. We're not. Let me share this with you. In each one of anytime you look at a movement of white America that catches on, there's always one person that stands out. I mean, or they tell us one person. 1776, the Revolution. Who do we talk about? Paul Revere. One is by land, two is by sea. Right? Paul Revere supposedly was the one guy that got this thing going, but they don't tell you about Crispus Attucks, who was the first Black person, the first American to be killed in that Boston massacre. And what happened was when they killed him and 4 others died, Crispus Attucks died on the spot. One other guy died later that day, and then 3 others died because of sickness. Back then, if you cut your leg on a tree, you're gonna get it cut off because it was gangrene. They didn't have you're gonna die at some point, right?
Yeah.
So they died, but even one of the guys, one of the 5 who died, claimed that the British fired in self-defense. So even back then, they were using the I feared for my life. They were using that same argument back then. And even then, Crispus Attucks, and I said Crispus Attucks was the George Floyd of the day. When Crispus massacre, they protested for like 5 months. And that protest led to the American Revolution. It was the spark that led it. The problem is but the same way that Crispus Attucks, a Black man, died, back then they pushed that Black man aside and raised up Paul Revere. And who got the benefit? Did Crispus Attucks and his people get the benefit of this nation? No. White folk, Revere. Fast forward, talked about not in the 70s, it was Lee Atwaters. In the 70s, it was Lee Atwaters. You can say the N-word, nigga. You can't say that anymore. That's what Lee Atwaters said. You can't say the N-word anymore. So we got to use code words. Again, Lee Atwaters became that one guy that gave them a strategy. Then fast forward to the 80s, and nobody talks about this guy. His name is Paul Weyrich, W-E-Y-R-I-C-H. This one man single-handedly put together the strategy that got us to where we are today. So I get that we have media, we have Black news as a strategy. We're not putting together and having these meetings that we're in agreement. Also, the evangelicals didn't have a rallying call until they decided that abortion was going to be it. And they used abortion to keep everybody unified. For us, the thing that unifies us is pain and, our pain. But
he just disappeared again.
Yeah.
Pain, he disappeared.
But
yeah, he was dropping some knowledge as Richard always does, and all on those. I did have a question. Maybe I'll ask you, and you can think of it until Richard gets back. But I sometimes think about those old time evangelists and some of those folks, and they don't give enough credit to the early evangelists, because I don't know if you're familiar with this, but there was a group out of California. It's called the I'm trying to think of the name of it, but it was Reverend Seaport Johnson, and he had a Azusa Street. It was that was there in California. It was actually very integrated and all along those lines. So this was way back in the early 1900s or maybe late 1800s and everything. A lot of times when people think about that evangelical movement, they don't give credit to how people that were involved in the creation of that. I was telling Richard, I was asking about how a lot of people don't even think about our involvement in the evangelical movement, but also Azusa Street and Seymour Johnson and all along those lines, because a lot of times people don't even think about that. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, again, it's we become the spark, and then they take the flame and run with it. And that's throughout history. As I said earlier, Crispus Attucks died, but Paul Revere ran with the flame. The Azusa Street, that whole movement of the Holy Spirit. Until that, nobody thought that the Holy Spirit could move through a whole community and get a community moving forward. What happened? White evangelicals come along and take it and run with it. And so it's only because we don't have the infrastructure, social infrastructure. Mm-hmm. But here's what I want to say. We have to begin to run our race today. We can't compete with somebody that's been running this race for 500 years. They got a 500-year head start, and we're not going to catch up. Let me do a sidebar real quick, because I love the Greek mythology, and there's a story called Zeno and the tortoise, but it's where we get the tortoise and the hare story. And the idea is, if a sprinter was racing against a turtle and you made all things equal, let's say you put the sprinter at the 100 line, 100 meters to run, 100-yard dash, but the turtle only had to run 10 yards. And you fired the gun, bow, and then they moved just a split second and you stopped. And then you started the race again and you stopped. And you continue to do that. The question is, would the runner ever catch up to the turtle? And the answer is no. The runner won't catch up to the turtle, because all things being equal, both of them always move forward to some degree. So if all things are equal, the tortoise is winning every time because he's running his own race at his own pace. And that's what we have to do. We got to stop being the tortoise that's running against the sprinter and be the tortoise that's running his own race. And when we run our own race, we start inching forward and inching forward and inching forward. After a while, we're going to be where we need to be. We don't have a strategy for running our own race. So here's what I'm saying, and I'm going to be saying this until the day I die. They have shown us how to do it in 70 years. And get this, the Christian evangelical movement did what they did with no internet, no social media, no cell phones, no streaming TV, no podcasts. That's why it took them 70 years. Do you think it's going to take us 70 years? No. And that's what the biggest fear is. The fear is that when we get our strategy and our plan and our act together, it's going to take us 7 years. And they go, oh, hell, that's 2 presidents from now. We could have a new Supreme Court 2 presidents from now. Why? Because a new president and a new Congress can decide to take the Supreme Court from what do we have now? 9 members. Take it from 9 to 15. They can go from 9 to 15. The moment we go from 9 to 15, and our president that we put into office gets those 6 new Supreme Court justices, the game is over. The same game that they played. But what we have to do is put a president in the White House that's going to get with a Congress and a Senate that we all put in there. They know that we now have the power to make that happen. And that's why they're willing to flush the entire economy and flush the entire country and destroy everything. The Bible says, you shall reap where you haven't sown. That I'll make out of you a great nation and I'll make your name great. Do you know the only people on earth that are not attached to a nation is the African American? There is no nation of Africa America. We're the only people that don't have a nation. So I believe when God says, I will make out of you a great nation, he's talking to us. But we've got to think, if they can think Christian nationalists, we've got to think African American nationalists, not Black nationalists in the sense of radical, but African American nationalists, as if we are the 51st state of the United States. If we thought like we were the 51st state and then become a new nation, next, and that's all the states are. Every one of these states, Florida is a nation, Georgia is a nation, Alabama is a nation, because that's the way the Europeans look. Some of their nations are smaller than most of those nations in the European nation are smaller than most of our states. And they came together to form the European Union because that's what we are. We're the United States Union. My point is, we need to take our focus off of them and put our focus on what we need to do. And what we need to do is vote. What we need to do is put together our strategy so that we can, number one, and I think this is, if we got out of the Democratic Party and got out of the Republican Party and got into no party, just say, look, we're no party affiliated. We have no party. So I'm willing to vote for Donald Trump if he gives me a reason to vote for him. And I'm willing to vote for Joe Biden if he gives me a reason to vote for him. Which one is going to give me a reason to vote for them? The only reason the Republicans are not trying to give us a reason to vote for them is because the Republicans know we're not going to vote for them. But Trump and his team recognize there's a slither of Black folk who will. They'll vote for him if he's a gangster. They'll vote for him if he's been shot like 50 Cent. They'll vote for him if he's a whoremonger on his way to hell that's been converted like the average Black preacher. Trump. I'm call me a prophet when it happens. Next week, you're going to say, Richard, you're a prophet. Because Thursday night, I'm telling you, Trump is not going to double down.
No, he said he had a come to Jesus meeting. So, but like I said, it's only going to last for about 2 weeks. He'll get out there and push it for about 2 weeks. He's going to get the best of them, and then he's going to turn loose.
Well,
turn up.
Yeah, here's what you got to recognize, that Trump is a loose cannon.
Yeah.
But his strategist, the Heritage Foundation is now Trump. So Trump took over the Republican Party, and these think tanks, the Heritage Foundation and all these other organizations that are out there have now taken over Trump. And so the Republican Party basically is handing the keys of this nation over to the zealots that are going to destroy it, and they would gladly destroy it before we get to it. So what we've got to do is recognize that they're playing games. And Reggie, I appreciate you for this platform, because the conversation is going to get deeper and deeper. As many times as I'm going to just let me know when and where, and I'm here, because I'm loving the fact that this right here is the beginning. This is how we change. Mm-hmm. It starts with conversations like this. And I may have shared this in the last meeting, the last podcast. A good friend of mine was Whitman Mayo, the guy that played Grady on Sanford and Son. Mm-hmm. And I was 28 years old and produced. Well, I became producer of a television talk show because Whitman inspired me to produce my friends. My friend mentioned that she always wanted her own television talk show, and Whitman said, "Why don't you produce her show?" And at 28 years old, I became executive producer of a television talk show. But Whitman said something as we gave him the excuses as to why we felt we couldn't do that talk show. And we said, they won't do it. They, they are racist. They Miami, Miami at that time was about to go through its third race riot in one decade.
Mm-hmm.
And in the 80s. And Whitman said to us, he said, who is this they? And where does they live? And then he said something that changed my life. He said, listen, no revolution has ever begun with the masses. It's always 2 or 3 people who get together and decide to change things. Just like Crispus Attucks and Paul Revere, one if by land, 2 if by sea. I was going to say one of us could be Paul Revere and the other one be Crispus Attucks, but it didn't end so well for Crispus Attucks. So how about we both be Paul Revere? Whatever. Because I want to be around, Reggie, and I think that do you feel that we can come up with a document and a strategy as powerful as Heritage Foundation? And if not, what's stopping us from doing that? What's stopping us from having that kind of power?
There's nothing stopping you from doing it. I mean, it's getting the people to come to the table to do it. You got to have national input from the wino on the corner to the highest, to Obama. You just got to have everybody involved with it because everybody has ideas, and you got to come together. You said something last week that our economically, we are well suited for doing something in this country that would just startle them, okay? Because we have that buying power. We have the buying power. We have the money. But we got to be able to come together collectively, leave the egos outside and say, look, we got to roll up our sleeves and do some work and make this happen. I think about this all the time. Over the years, I have felt, and when I say over the years, I'm talking about a lot of years. I've always felt that, we need to take one for the team by 1 year refusing to vote. Black folks, okay? Just come out to parties, like you said, and don't vote, okay? Granted, we might get jacked up.
And this is okay, good. See, this is how we start the conversation, right?
Yeah.
So no, and here's my point. I say this: do just the reverse. Never miss an opportunity to vote, no matter what. If it's dog catcher, vote, because what happens is we've got to flood. We have to flood the system, and when that's why Hillary Clinton did not go to the urban. What was it? What is it called? The rural. Hillary Clinton did not go out into the rural hillbilly elegy. The Trump picked his vice president to go.
Well, look like you're on mute. You're on mute, Mark.
Y'all were dropping into some serious knowledge. He was having some more technical problems and everything, but y'all were dropping some serious knowledge over there.
Before I just
with the campaigns and all that. But we'll see what's going on. Some amazing conversation y'all having. We try to come back to it.
But before
the camera work gets going, and I see him back live and everything. So hold on, see if we can get him back on. Wait for the camera to come back on so I can see him in that space. There you go. Let's bring him on.
Yeah, Mark. You know what? I think that the universe is saying we can't occupy the same space at the same, because every time you pop in, I get kicked out. I'm like, what the heck is going on?
Maybe that's what it is. The universe is afraid that we might cause too much trouble together because they know that we are both smart individuals and all along those lines. So the universe might not be able to handle it. The other possibility, because Reggie is over there in Baltimore.
Yeah,
and Baltimore isn't that far from DC, and he was president before. I think that Trump might be the one that is getting us off of everything. That might be Trump's fault. It might be Trump's fault because he might have gotten the keys to the knowledge from Mr. Reggie. So I think it's Trump's fault that he keeps kicking us out.
So I mean, going forward, we got to figure it out because each day that we don't figure out what's going on, we're just putting ourselves behind further and further, and that's what we're doing. And like I was saying, it bothers me that we can't come together and become a strong force in this nation. And start letting the evangelists and the magna, whatever they want to call themselves, try to run things. I mean, like you said, and I've said, they have an agenda. They got a playbook. Where's our playbook at? Where is our playbook at?
Reggie, I truly.
Richard, you gone, man. Come back.
Yeah, I'm been popping in and out. It's been sort of a bad connection here, but
your fault.
I am convinced, man, that we have this great opportunity. I love the.
But I tell you what, we're going to have to finish this conversation up, Richard, and we're going to get back and continue to discuss this stuff. I mean, this is some important stuff, for the Black community, and how to figure out where we're going, because we got enough people. But I think one thing we got to start doing too, we got to stop being scared of whites, okay, and say what we want to say and do what we want to do.
Yeah.
And that's what we got to do.
So here's what I propose, and I think that Urban Sentinel magazine is in the perfect place to do this. We've got to host a summit. Let's start the conversation. The three of us can do that. At least put it together, and then let's move this. Let's move the needle. Let's again, like I said, it took them 70 years because they did not have the internet. They did not have social media. They didn't have podcasts. It's not going to take us 70 years. What we've got to do, though, is have a clear strategy, because if we're going to move this spaceship forward at the speed of light, we better make certain that we ain't running into no stray planets. It's like you gotta have a straight, clear path, so that there's no bump in the road, because we can't afford a bump in the road when this thing is moving as fast as it's going to move.
Hey,
so
Richard, just really quickly
I know that this is the perfect opportunity, and not only that, but Jacksonville would be the perfect place for the Urban Sentinel magazine to make its presence felt. Because there's an organization that we're working with every year to do a conference here in Jacksonville. And this Jacksonville conference, and Jacksonville was voted as the #1 place to start a business in the nation. So we're in a good place here to launch. And under, with Urban Sentinel, I think that, I love the idea of the Urban Sentinel Summit. And it would be the us summit, it's the us summit. So let's speak this thing into existence.
Yeah, let's talk more about it. Let's talk more about it.
Yeah, because I think you've got the platform, man, and we just gotta make the energy move.
Yeah,
and I'm excited.
Yeah, definitely
about making it.
Hey, Reggie and Richard, are we going to do this as a virtual conference, or
really
appreciate
you,
live
Richie,
conference?
and
I
make
know
part
that
of this.
last year I did
this
virtual conference with the social workers, and it went strictly virtual.
So as I was saying, I really appreciate you reaching out to me and making my voice a part of this platform. And
are we going to do it virtual and live, or is it just strictly going to be live if it's in Jacksonville?
Yeah,
it's like both. We can do both.
What's that?
You can do both. You can do virtual and live, at the same time. That's just the kind of, we got to.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It got to be virtual and live. But we'll talk more about this and start putting it together and figuring out how we're going to get it done, and plan it for next year.
Well, I think that's exactly it, because we can bring it together. I don't have Mark, I don't have your contact up, but if you will shoot it to me, or Reggie, if you'll share my contact with Mark,
I will.
That we can start this thing, because I think that we just need to shape it out. I'll share some foundational documents that I have on my end, and our business alliance is celebrating 25 years. And get this now, Mark has jumped off. I may just go ahead and repeat it when he comes back on, but we're celebrating 25 years with our business alliance. I started it in the year 2000, and it just sort of has been growing for the real slow for the last 25 years. But our focus has been primarily arts and entrepreneurship. That's our mission: encourage literacy through arts and through entrepreneurship and the arts. And next year we celebrate 25 years. I was writing our document as December 2025, and then along comes Project 2025. So it's perfect for us, to talk about 2025. But but what we need to do is present our 2026 agenda, the 2026 going forward agenda. So where do we go forward from here? And there's a lot of things, man, that we can bring to the table, and a lot of people and a lot of voices. And I think Urban Sentinel is the perfect platform to do just that. So I know you're going to be wrapping up soon, but I man, again, a great, even with all of the I think all the energy that we brought to the show caused the wires to get crossed and things to jump in and out. So but I've not had I've had a great time, man. I appreciate you.
Well, I'm glad you did. I'm glad you did. It's always a pleasure. It's always a pleasure. So look, we're gonna call it a night, but we're gonna get things rolling, man, because it takes time. We got to come up with ideas and how we're gonna handle it, what we're gonna do, and how we're gonna get the people involved in it. It takes a lot to put the logistics together, and we just got to go ahead and bite the bullet and get it done, man. If we want to see the beginning of change in this country, we just got to go ahead and bite the bullet and everything, So everyone, all my viewers, been on, my friend and I, Richard Cuff, we've been talking about what we need to do in Black America to move Black America along tonight. We're gonna hitch the wagon up to the bus, and you can jump on and join us, okay? So when you get opportunity, my friends,
listen, man. I am definitely looking forward to what's to come and how we are going to change things up in here, because now is the time to do just that, to bring about a serious change.
Yeah.
So
and we got to do it.
Well, man, I appreciate you. I will. Well.
Oh no, I was going to tell everyone, go to
see you next week.
Yeah, I'm gonna tell everybody, go to urbansentinelmagazine.com and hit the button there where it says purchase a magazine. The magazines are free right now, and get the latest edition of the Urban Sentinel magazine. Or you can go to issueissuu.com and download a copy of the magazine also. So support us, and let's make things happen here in the USA. Okay. So Richard, have a good one, man. We'll be talking. Okay.
All right. Talk with you later, bro.
Okay. Bye. Good night now. Good night, everyone.
Good night.